Hey everyone, it's Tony Leonardi, your certified financial planner professional from Newtown, Connecticut, and author of A Smarter Way to Retire 10 Steps Towards a Confident Financial Future, back with another episode of A Smarter Way to Retire podcast. Last week, we introduced the important distinction between live-on assets, the money that you'll spend during your own lifetime, and leave-on assets, the money that you intend to pass to your kids and grandkids. Many of you told me that that single idea really made you stop and think and look at your own portfolio and your own plan a little differently. Today, I want to focus specifically on the live-on side and show you exactly how to minimize taxes and maximize those dollars as much as possible while you're still here. The very first and most important step is this. You have to separate your live-on assets from your leave-on assets. And how do you do that? Well, most people actually never do this. They treat all of their assets the same. They treat every retirement account exactly the same way. Same investment mix, same withdrawal strategy, same tax planning. But once you separate the two buckets, live on versus leave on, everything changes. So how do you actually do this? You have to run a realistic retirement spending plan. How much do you need each year to live the life that you want to live, including taxes, inflation, healthcare, and all other planned and sometimes unplanned expenses? Once you have that number, subtract your guaranteed income, your Social Security, pensions, rental income, etc. That gap that you need to fill from your savings becomes your live-on bucket. Everything that's left over that you don't need to live on becomes your leave-on bucket. Does that make sense? In the modeling software that I use here in my office, it's pretty easy to see that distinction. Your surplus or your leave-on assets show up in your model as your safety margin in both current dollars and future dollars. So we really nail that number precisely. The current dollar safety margin is what we call your leave-on assets. Your live-on assets are simply your total assets minus that safety margin, minus that leave-on bucket. Most clients that I work with are very surprised to discover that 40 to 70% of their assets, their retirement savings, actually fall into the leave-on category, meaning that your truly live-on assets make up, in many cases, only 30 to 60% of your savings. So what happens if you don't separate these two buckets, if you treat them all the same? Well, this is what most people do. They don't separate leave-on assets from live-on assets. And it usually leads to a suboptimal plan in both directions. I see this all the time, especially with do-it-yourself investors. They leave a lot of opportunity and a lot of money on the table by not making this distinction. When you don't separate live on versus leave on assets, you make one of two major mistakes. One, you may be taking more risk than necessary with the money that you'll need to spend soon, increasing the chance of sequence of returns problems. For example, you have all of your money in a 60-40 bucket. You don't have anything set aside for that 1 to 5 year immediate time frame. Sequence of returns is your major risk there. At the same time, the opposite mistake is also very common. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I also see people making. They're way too conservative with their leave-on assets because they haven't separated those out. They treat everything all bunched together, and they assume that they may have to tap into that bucket at some point in the future to help pay bills because they haven't made that distinction. And they're afraid to put that long-term, what could be long-term money to risk, even though they probably will never touch that money, maybe for decades or ever. This excessive conservatism on your 30 to 40-year leave-on money causes you to leave a lot on the table in terms of lost investment opportunity costs. Again, I see this all the time, especially, again, amongst do-it-yourself investors. It's okay and it's actually recommended to be very conservative with your first spending bucket, that 1 to 5 year bucket. But to leave your 30 to 40-year legacy bucket invested like it's a current spending bucket is a huge mistake, and I see it over and over again. In short, not separating your live-on assets from your leave-on assets usually means paying more in taxes, taking more risk than is necessary with your spending money, being too conservative with your legacy money, ultimately leaving more to the IRS and less to the people you care about, less to your family. In other words, suboptimal planning. And who wants to be suboptimal? Not me. So once we've separated live-on assets versus leave-on assets, how do we minimize taxes on that bucket? Once you've identified your live-on bucket, here are the 4 strategies that we use most often to reduce taxes on that money. Number 1, strategic Roth conversions. Convert traditional IRA dollars to Roth IRAs over time, ideally while you're still in lower tax brackets before RMDs kick in. You pay the tax once now, but future withdrawals for living expenses become completely tax-free. The key is to do the conversion while you're in lower tax brackets to avoid paying future taxes in higher tax brackets. Again, here's where a good financial model helps you make that distinction. Second strategy, tax-efficient withdrawal sequencing. Be deliberate about the order that you pull money from your different accounts. Generally, taxable brokerage accounts first, then tax-deferred accounts, and finally tax-free accounts. This can keep your taxable income lower for longer. You need to know what tax bracket you're in so you can choose the best bucket to pull from. Again, here's where a good model really helps out. Strategy 3, smart asset allocation for your live-on money. Since these live-on dollars need to be available when you need them in the short term, you should be using a more conservative allocation with higher bond and fixed income exposure, even tax-free muni bonds to help keep taxes low. This reduces volatility, helps you avoid being forced to sell stocks or funds in a down market just to cover living expenses. Remember, sequence of returns risk. We've done several episodes on sequence of returns risk. The most recent episode number 60, just a few weeks ago. So if you want to go back and revisit that episode, that might be a great idea. Strategy 4, qualified charitable distributions. We've talked about this several times in the past. If you're charitably inclined and age 70 and a half or older, direct your RMDs, your required minimum distributions, or even larger amounts than that, straight from your IRA to qualified charities. This satisfies your RMD requirement as far as the IRS is concerned, reduces your taxable income dollar for dollar, and can help you stay below IRMA Medicare thresholds, saving you even more. I can already hear some of you thinking, well, if I give all of my money to charity, yes, I avoid taxes, but I also lose that money available to me to spend. That's true. The key to good charitable planning is to give away the money that you don't need in order to reduce the taxes on the money that you do need, the money that you're living on. Again, another great reason to distinguish between your live-on and your leave-on assets. Maximize your QCD planning. And yes, your kids might be wondering, if they know about this, if they will lose access to that money as well. Well, not necessarily. Not when we pair QCDs with annuity guarantees that can protect your principal for your family. This is the basis of our legacy tax shield concept, which we'll talk more about next week. I want you to think about this strategy this way. You're giving away the tax dollars to charity instead of to the IRS, and you're retaining your principal for your family. Super powerful. If you're interested in how to make this concept work for your family, just let me know. I'll run the numbers for you. When you combine these 4 strategies for your live-on bucket, most clients see a meaningful reduction in lifetime taxes, lower Medicare premiums, and greater confidence that their money will last as long as they do. I've put together a brand new guide called the Smart Tax Shield Legacy Playbook that covers both of our tax strategies, helping you keep the IRS from taking 2 bites at your retirement apple, once while you're alive, while you're taking RMDs, and again when you're gone, when your kids are forced to take distributions based on the 10-year rule. Wouldn't it be nice to eliminate one of these tax bites, either during your lifetime or after you're gone for your kids? I cover both strategies in my new playbook. It's available for complimentary download. Just reach out to me and let me know you'd be interested in receiving a copy. Even better, I'm still offering to build your own smart retirement model at no cost or no obligation while time slots are available. You'll see exactly how much of your savings is truly live-on money versus leave-on money, and how the right tax strategy for each bucket can really improve your plan, not only for you, but for your family as well. You can book a complimentary quick 15-minute call on my calendar at leonardifamilywealthcare.com. Look for my contact me and Calendly links. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening, and remember, there really is a smarter way to retire. I'll see you next week when we'll dive into the leave-on asset side and how to make those assets as tax efficient as possible for your heirs. We'll see you then.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Mosaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Mosaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and their marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Mosaic Wealth. The opinions expressed herein are for general information only and is not necessarily the opinions of Mosaic Wealth or its representatives. Investing is subject to risk, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. It is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Please consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation.